hard to believe there's more to talk about in the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell crime and cover-up by the Trump administration. But it's the gift that keeps on giving, mainly because of Donald Trump. Nobody keeps this story alive more than Donald Trump. And if it's not Donald Trump, it's Pam Bondi. If it's not Pam Bondi, it's JD Vance. They just can't seem. I mean, this is like something stuck to the bottom of their foot that they can't get rid of because they're not being honest with the American people and they're not releasing all the files. So every little thing matters. Every little thing, like Ghislaine Maxwell being given work release. She gets to go work at a Starbucks during the week as a convicted child sex predator. I wouldn't want to go into that Starbucks. We talk more about it on the Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network, Legal AF, the podcast. And here's a clip. What's going on with the Epstein case? Karen, let me turn it over to you. We've got some new reporting that from Allison Gill Mueller, she wrote, which she's standing by, that says that Ghislaine Maxwell is eligible for work release. She's got out, checked off next to her name on the Bureau of Prisons now that she's been reassigned to a minimum security prison camp in Texas. And why don't you catch the audience up on that, brief them on that, and then, of course, the other, I can pick up with, JD Vance going on Sunday News trying to blame the Biden administration for not releasing the files, and we're still at the files have not been released. And then we've got Paul Engelmeyer, a federal judge in New York, who issued a ruling about grand jury secrecy transcripts, but went even further in excoriating the Trump administration and vindicating the rights of the victims. So we'll tie all that together in this segment. You want to kick it off?
Sure. So Ghislaine Maxwell is, as you know, she went to trial in her case after Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide a month after he was arrested. And she went to trial. She was convicted of most of the charges of both facilitating sexual activity with minors as well as participating in them herself. So she was resoundingly convicted and sentenced to 20 years. And there are different places she could serve that time. And she was in a higher level security facility. And as a result of talking to the Trump administration, she suddenly is now transferred to a minimum security camp. And when you get to go to a place like that, there's a lot you get to do there. First of all, that they call it a camp for a reason. It's it's minimum security, a lot of freedom, a lot you can do. And one of the things that you get to be, it's kind of ironic that Jared Kushner in Trump 1 was instrumental in a lot of these prison reforms and sentencing reforms, things like the First Step Act, et cetera, that allows people who have served a certain amount of time to have time reduced off their sentence or to get to do things like work release. And that, it seems to be where she's headed. And it's one of the reasons, I'm sure, why she was given this cushy role to go to minimum security now, so that she can avail herself of all of these things and start the process of getting out, frankly. So I think that's where she is and what's happening. I don't know, maybe the Trump administration decided that a full pardon is a little too distasteful, and it's just interesting because through all of this, although I followed Epstein and Maxwell at the time when this was all going on, now that this is all happening, I'm sort of refreshing my memory on all of what happened and came out in her trial. And thankfully, Judge Engelmeyer, who's the judge who in the Southern District who denied this request from the Trump administration to release the grand jury minutes, he denied it in a 30-plus page decision. This could have just been a one-page decision or a two-page decision, or just a denied. I mean, because this doesn't meet the legal standard even close. But he took the time to really remind everybody of the treasure trove of information, the amount of stuff that the Trump administration possesses and doesn't need the permission of the judge to release. What he basically said in this decision was, look, there was a trial. Ghislaine Maxwell had a trial, and lots of evidence came out in that trial, and nothing in this grand jury testimony amplifies upon that. The grand jury is a bare bones, probable cause standard, just enough to charge someone with a crime. And then you have a trial where you have full evidence and cross-examination, et cetera. This grand jury presentation was 2 different witnesses who testified, and neither of them, they were summary witnesses. So they just summarized the evidence. Neither of them testified at the trial. And there was nothing in there that illuminated anything. There was nothing new or anything in there special that didn't come out at the trial. So he basically said, look, I'm denying it because you didn't meet the standard, but I'm not, there's nothing in there. And he previewed that for everybody. There's literally nothing in there, but there is a lot of stuff that came out at the trial and is part of the investigation that the FBI and the Department of Justice has when they investigated and prosecuted these cases, right? They executed search warrants, they recovered a notebook, flight logs, all that kind of stuff. I was reading a CNN article that talks about just the connection and how close, I don't know that people realize how close Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were. They called themselves best friends. They were the best of friends, the closest friends. He'd been on the plane. His children, when they were little, and their nannies went on his plane. It's all in the flight logs, and they put it in chronological order. And it's worth looking at because it's just they were shockingly close. They weren't just acquaintances who knew each other at parties. These were people who spent a lot of time together, flew on each other's airplanes a lot together, and literally called each other best friends. And there was at one point, Trump admitted that he knew that Jeffrey Epstein likes him young. I mean, it's not a far stretch given the amount of women who have come forward and accused Donald Trump of forcibly, whether it's raping them or kissing them or touching them. There are so many women who have come forward to say that that's what happened. And that's what his friend Jeffrey Epstein did as well. And so it's not a huge stretch. And when you think about it and you see how close they were, and I think it's time for the Justice Department and the FBI to turn over the records that they have in their possession that does not require the court or anybody else to release the way these grand jury minutes that show nothing. They just want to be able to say, oh, we were going to turn them over, but the judge said no. The judge said no. There's nothing there. It's literally giving ice in winter. There's nothing in those minutes. And there never was going to be anything in those minutes. I've never seen grand jury minutes that are substantive, federal grand jury minutes that are substantive. That's not how they do it. They do it exactly this way for a reason. So that's where we are. And, with all of this, sorry, yeah. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I get so upset when I get this topic really bothers me.
The podcast is a tangent. I mean, we said that.
I know, but I
Ben, when he and I talk about when we do Saturday Sunday, he's like, we'll be talking about, all right, I'll do this part, and then you do a Popok rant or a Ben rant. I'm like, the rant, that's the juice, that's the podcast.
Yes.
The rant part. So yeah, Engelmeyer, I'll just touch on that part. Judge Engelmeyer issued a 35-page plus decision. What I liked about it, in a way that Judge Rosenberg in West Palm Beach, when she was dealing with her grand jury transcript, no, I'm not going to release the transcript issue. She just did like a 5-pager, like, well, Rule 6E of the Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure, Rule of Secrecy, you haven't given me proper ground, so no. That's not what Engelmeyer did. What Engelmeyer had said is, I'm going to set the record straight. First part of my order is going to be reminding people how of the crimes that Ghislaine Maxwell committed. The 6 or 7 that she was indicted for, the 5 that she was convicted of, her participation in sexual abuse of girls and women, the victims that testified, because he's seeing, as we all are, an attempt to rehabilitate Ghislaine Maxwell by her lawyer, by Donald Trump, by the right-wing MAGA, by MAGA media, and the rest, because they have to do that because Donald Trump wants to exonerate her. And so they have to have it be muddied in the people's mind that maybe she's the victim too. And the judge says, all right, this is my paraphrase. Let's set the record straight. She's not a saint. She's a convicted sinner. And these are her sins. He didn't have to do that. But he did that, I think, in honor of the 1,000 or more victims of hers, including those that had the courage to testify against her. And there were about 6 of them. That was the first section. Second section was what I referred to as release the damn files. The judge saying, okay, I know you've tried to divert attention and sent it over to federal judges because you're trying to redefine what the Epstein files are, but we don't have the Epstein files. What we have, and we're not sitting on them, are a very scant one-day transcript, nothing of which, and he said, I looked at it, I'm not going to tell you what's in it, but I will tell you in general, all of it has been reported. None of it is new. And then he went off to say the mine load, or what I call the mother load of documents that comprise the Epstein files, are sitting with the Trump administration. And he says point blank, by quoting Pam Bondi's February memo, Pam Bondi's February announcement, the press conference, the letter to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, have all the files on my desk, the revelation by the Department of Justice that there were 300 gigabytes of information which comprise the Epstein files. And he laid that all out to say to the public and to the Trump administration, your attempt to blame federal judges for not releasing the Epstein files is a charade. You're sitting on the Epstein files. We aren't. He says, I looked in the files, and anybody, if I could allow you to look at them, and I can't because of the rule of secrecy around grand jury materials, you and all the people that you say justify releasing the files, the pundits, the press, the media, the public, would all be bitterly disappointed because there's no there, his words. And it called out the Trump administration and reset the battlefield to remind everybody, Ghislaine Maxwell is a convicted sex predator. 1. 2, I don't have the docs, and none of the federal judges do. The Trump administration does. So go to them and solve your own problem, Trump administration, and don't try to use the federal courts to do it. And 3, he then had a short section, much like Judge Rosenberg in Florida, about, 6C, none of these things that you're telling us are the justifications work. I also found it interesting, Karen, that this is where we always have to disconnect on purpose between what Trump says for political fodder on the campaign trail or on the presidential trail about what his arguments are and what they can actually argue in a court of law. How many times have we heard over the last 6 weeks or more? Why are we still talking about the Epstein files? It's boring. There's nothing there. It's not very interesting. Why don't you ask me questions, dumb reporter, about the tariffs or about my peace deals that I'm doing or about something else I want you to focus on? Why do you keep focusing on the Epstein files? That's what he says publicly. Of course, we know it's rocked the administration because they're holding non-secret meetings in the middle of the night in the White House to try to figure out. Oh, I love this one. It's they're having a communications problem. It's like the old Cool Hand Luke movie. We're having a failure to communicate about Epstein. No, you're not. You're not releasing the files. And everybody sees that as a cover-up of epic proportion of depraved sexual criminal conduct. And we want to know if you're involved. You may say to us, there's other people involved, but why is your name all over the Epstein files? And that's the problem he's having right now and convincing even his MAGA base about it. So while you got all that going on and all the distractions going on in the filings, Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice, tells Judge Engelmeyer and others, this is a case of great public importance. Everybody, history needs to know how the FBI and all. And I'm like, which is it? Is it it's boring, nothing to see here, or this is a case of great public importance? That's the only time I ever agree with Pam Bondi. It is a case of great public importance. And what it says about this administration, I'll leave it on this, Karen. The fact that Donald Trump is so low, has sunk so low, that he needs a convicted child sex offender to vouch for his character, says everything you need to know about this administration and how morally hollow it is. Welcome back. Some people only know us from the YouTube channel, Legal AF YouTube channel that I curate, where we have about a dozen videos a day at the intersection of law and politics. But it all started, the OG, the granddaddy of them all, is Legal AF, the podcast, which I started with Ben Meiselas 5 years ago. And look where we are now. Just got our new rankings. And this is all a compliment and a testament to our audience. We're now top 16 in the world on YouTube for all podcasts. Think of the amount of podcasts that are on YouTube. And the fact that we're at the top 16, that's a testament to you and our viewers and our fervent support from our audience. Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is the Legal AF podcast. It's over on Midas Touch. And then we have ad-free versions on the Legal AF Substack. and on Patreon as well. These are the ways you can support us, both with free membership. Hit that subscribe button. And then there's paid membership, which frankly helps us do the reporting and the commentary that you have come to enjoy. So if you can switch over to paid, now would be a great time to do that. It helps people say, how do you keep the lights on? This is how we keep the lights on. See that little light behind me? Yeah, that's how it stays on. So until my next report, join us for Legal AF, the podcast, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And pick us up on all audio podcast platforms of your choice. We end up usually a top 50 in audio podcast downloads in the news department, if you will. A little bit of a gap between the viewership and the listenership. We're trying to close that gap. So with your help, we will. Till my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.